They always chose my brother. I was just the shadow. Until he made a mistake that changed everything. For the first time, they came to me, and I had only one word for them. The rule in our house was simple. If it came down to me or my brother Adam, Adam won. Always. No tiebreakers, no discussion. It was just understood, like gravity or the smell of my dad's aftershave in the hallway. Holidays? Adam picked the menu. Birthdays? Adam got the big gift, and I got the thoughtful one, which was usually something from the clearance rack at the hardware store. Family photos. Mom would spend 20 minutes fixing Adam's hair and maybe toss me a comb if she remembered. Even when we were kids, the difference was obvious. I still remember third grade, my school's science fair. I had spent weeks building this model of the solar system out of foam balls and fishing line. I even painted tiny craters on the moon. Adam, who was 2 years younger, brought in a Lego tower he slapped together in 15 minutes. Guess which one my parents took 30 photos of. Guess which one ended up in the garage, forgotten, with a spider nest in it. It was not like Adam was a bad kid. He just knew how to work them. He had this grin that could get him out of anything. If he forgot his chores, Mom would call him scatterbrained and laugh. If I forgot mine, it was a lecture about responsibility. And if we both wanted the same thing, a seat in the front on road trips, the last slice of pie, the chance to hold the TV remote, well, you already know how that ended. The thing is, I kept thinking maybe I could even the scales. If I worked harder, kept my grades up, made myself useful, they would see me differently. But every time I started to believe it, something would happen to remind me of my place. Like the summer I was 15, when I made varsity baseball. I came home with my jersey in hand, proud enough to float through the door, only to find out the whole family was already dressed and heading out to celebrate Adam's big achievement, winning second place in a local fishing contest. No one had even asked how tryouts went. That was the pattern. Me in the background, Adam in the spotlight. It did not matter how small his win was. It was still somehow bigger than anything I could do. Back then, I told myself it would not matter once I was older. I thought once I had my own life, my own place, and my own paycheck, I would be free of it. I could stop caring. But that was before last week, before Adam's name showed up in headlines, before Mom called me sounding like she had been crying for hours, before my dad said the words, "We need you to fix this." And for the first time in my life, I realized I had the power to say no. Only question was, would I? The first time I knew for sure Adam was the favorite was my 10th birthday. Mom asked me what kind of cake I wanted, and I said chocolate with peanut butter frosting. She smiled, wrote it down in her planner, and I actually believed her. That Saturday, the whole family showed up, grandparents, cousins, neighbors who barely remembered my name. When it was time for cake, Mom walked in carrying vanilla with strawberry frosting. My stomach sank. I hated strawberry. She set it down like it was a masterpiece. Then she said, "Adam does not like peanut butter, so I figured we would do something everyone enjoys." Everyone, meaning Adam. It sounds petty now, being upset over cake, but when you are 10, that stuff matters. It is not about the flavor. It is about someone listening. I smiled anyway because I had learned by then that showing disappointment just made me look ungrateful. That was the theme all through childhood. School events, family outings, even what shows we watched on Friday nights. Adam's pick every single time. If I pushed back, Dad would say, "Let your brother have this one." The problem was, this one was all of them. In high school, it got more obvious. My senior year, I made honor roll all 4 quarters. Not once did anyone come to a ceremony. Adam made junior varsity basketball. He got a dinner out, new sneakers, and a banner in the living room. Even my friends noticed. One of them, Kyle, once joked, "Man, if you ever get trapped in a burning building with your brother, you better start running first." I laughed at the time, but it stuck with me. I kept thinking I could earn my way into the spotlight. I picked up extra shifts at the grocery store to help with bills, mowed lawns around the neighborhood, even put gas in Adam's car when he forgot his wallet. Nothing shifted. If anything, it made things worse. I became useful, not valued. A background player who kept the machine running so the star could shine. By the time I moved out at 20, I had stopped trying. I built my own life, made my own friends, learned how to feel normal in a world where I was not second place by default. Then last Thursday happened. Dad's voice on the phone, tight, urgent. Mom sniffling in the background. Adam had gotten into something. And suddenly, they were looking at me like I was the only one who could dig him out. I told them I would think about it. Truth was, I already knew the answer. But part of me wanted to hear the full story, every last messy detail, before I closed that door for good. And what I learned made the decision a whole lot easier. When Dad finally told me what happened, it was like peeling an onion, one thin layer at a time, and each one smelling worse than the last. At first, he just said Adam had made a bad investment. That phrase alone was laughable. Adam had never invested in anything in his life, unless you counted his endless supply of sneakers and video game consoles. Then Mom jumped in, her voice shaking, saying it was more complicated. Adam had gone in on some can't-miss real estate deal with a couple of his buddies from college. Supposedly, it was a luxury condo project out of state. They were going to flip the units and make a killing. Except there was no project. No condos. Just a slick-talking guy with a fake business plan and a knack for vanishing once the checks cleared. Adam had wired over every cent he had, and some he did not. How much? I asked. My voice was flat. There was a pause. Dad said, more than he can pay back right now. I pushed again. How much? That is when Mom blurted it out. $200,000. My stomach tightened. $200,000. I knew Adam did not have that kind of money. Which meant, it is not just his money, Dad admitted. He borrowed. It turned out Adam had taken out loans under his own name and co-signed for a few more with friends. Worse, he had roped our parents into co-signing a personal line of credit for business expenses. And now the bank was circling, the friends were threatening lawsuits, and here was the real kicker. Some of the people involved were not exactly the type you wanted showing up at your door if they thought you owed them. That was why they were calling me. Not because they had suddenly realized I was dependable, not because they finally respected me, but because I was the only one in the family with enough in savings, a steady income, and good credit to even begin patching the mess. They wanted me to save Adam, to be the hero. For a few seconds, I will admit, the thought tempted me. This could be my moment, the time I stepped in, fixed everything, and finally proved I was worth as much as the golden child. But as quick as that thought came, another followed. If I did this, I would not be proving anything. I would just be signing up for the same role I had always played, quiet, reliable, invisible, unless they needed something. I told Dad I needed some time to think. And that night, I remembered one particular moment from years ago that made my answer crystal clear. It was my senior year of high school, the spring before graduation. I had just gotten the acceptance letter from the university I had dreamed about since I was 13. Full scholarship, my own dorm room, a shot at the kind of future I had been quietly working toward for years. I came home with the envelope still in my hand, heart pounding like I had just run a mile. Mom and Dad were in the kitchen with Adam, talking about his latest basketball game. I waited until there was a break in the conversation, then slid the letter across the table. Dad read the first line, nodded once, and set it down. That is great, but we need to talk about something else. The something else was that Adam had been feeling left out lately. They were worried that me going away to college would make him feel like he was being left behind. So, in their minds, the solution was simple. I could still go to college, just the one in town. The local community college. 2 bus rides away, no dorms, no campus life. That way I could still be home to support the family and make sure Adam did not feel overshadowed. I thought they were joking at first. I laughed. No one else did. They told me I should be grateful they were letting me go to school at all. That plenty of kids my age would kill for that chance. And then Dad said the part that stuck with me for years. It is not always about what you want. It is about what is best for the family. For the family, meaning for Adam. I ended up going to the local school for 1 semester before I realized I could not spend 4 years trapped in the same cycle. I took on 2 jobs, found a roommate, and transferred out the next year. I did it all without their help. They did not even visit my new place. That was the day I stopped expecting anything from them. Not approval, not support, not even basic fairness. So sitting in my apartment all these years later, hearing them beg me to step in for Adam, it felt like stepping back into that kitchen, scholarship letter in hand, realizing I was never going to matter as much. Only this time, I had the power to walk away. The next morning, I called Dad back. I told him I had an answer. And when I gave it, there was silence on the line. When I told Dad I was not going to help, it came out calm, steady, like I had been practicing the words for years without even knowing it. I cannot bail him out, I said. Not this time. Not ever. For a second, I thought the call had dropped. Then Dad's voice came through, low and sharp. You were going to let your brother's life fall apart? I reminded him that Adam was not a kid anymore. He was 32 years old, fully capable of making his own choices and his own mistakes. Mom cut in, her voice already trembling. She said this was not just about Adam. If he went down, it would drag them with him. Their credit, their savings, maybe even the house. It was meant to pull at me, I could tell. That old trick of tying my worth to how much I could carry for them. But something in me had shifted. I told them they should call a lawyer, maybe the bank. Dad snapped back that they had called me instead, that I was the only one they could count on. That word, count on, hit me wrong. It was not a compliment. It was a job description, one they had never given Adam. When I repeated my no, Dad's voice rose. He said I was being selfish, ungrateful, cold. Mom started crying harder. I could hear her in the background saying things like, I do not know what we did to raise someone like this. I let them talk. Every insult, every guilt trip rolled off in a way that would have been impossible years ago. Finally, Dad went quiet, and I thought maybe they were done. But then he said something that almost made me laugh. You are going to regret this. One day, you are going to need us. I pictured every holiday I spent in the background, every time my achievements got pushed aside for Adam's bare minimum efforts. Every birthday where I got whatever was left over after his big gift. Every decision where my opinion never even entered the room. Need them? I thanked him for the call and hung up. 10 minutes later, Adam texted me. No greeting. Just one sentence. You are really going to let me drown? I put the phone down and did not answer. But deep down, I knew this was not the end. They were not going to let this go without a fight. 2 days after I told them no, I found out they had decided to take a different approach. One they must have thought would shame me into changing my mind. I was at the grocery store, halfway through the self-checkout line, when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Text after text from people I had not heard from in years. Old classmates, distant relatives, even my old baseball coach. All of them saying some version of the same thing. Hey, are you okay? Saw what your mom posted. I did not have to wonder long. I pulled up Facebook and there it was, right at the top of my feed. A long post from Mom, written in that syrupy tone she used whenever she wanted the world to see her as a saint. She wrote about how a mother's heart breaks when her family is in trouble, about how Adam had fallen victim to a cruel scam, and how sometimes those who can help choose not to. No names, of course. She did not have to. She sprinkled in enough personal details that anyone who knew us could figure out exactly who she meant. The comments section was full of sympathy for Adam, prayers for the family, and just enough pointed remarks to make sure I saw what people thought of me. Some people forget where they came from. Family should be there for each other no matter what. Money is replaceable. A brother isn't. The worst part? Adam was in the comments too, milking it. Posting little thank you replies and hinting about how hard it was to be abandoned by the people you thought you could trust. It worked, at least in getting people to pile on. I started getting DMs from mutual friends telling me I should just help him out and be the bigger person. One even offered to set up a GoFundMe, so I wouldn't have to carry it all. I sat in my car in that grocery store parking lot for almost an hour, scrolling through the mess. Every instinct from my past told me to defend myself, to lay out the receipts, and let everyone see the years of favoritism, the decisions that always went Adam's way. But the longer I sat there, the more I realized that was exactly what they wanted, to pull me back into the role of explaining myself, proving my worth, trying to win the vote in a game I never agreed to play. So I did the one thing they would never expect. I logged out. No replies. No posts. Nothing. And that silence? It turned out to be the loudest thing I could have done. Because the very next day, the pressure came from somewhere I had not anticipated, someone I had not heard from in over a decade. The next morning, my phone lit up with a number I did not recognize. Normally, I would have let it go to voicemail, but something about the area code made me answer. Hey, it's Mark. It took me a second. Mark was Adam's old best friend, the guy who practically lived at our house in high school. We had not spoken in over 12 years, not since he and Adam had a falling out over some girlfriend drama. I know this is out of the blue, he said, but I heard about what's going on, and I thought you should know. It's worse than they're telling you. I stayed quiet, letting him talk. According to Mark, this real estate scam Adam had bought into was not just some unlucky fluke. Adam had been warned, multiple times, by people he trusted. One of them was Mark himself. He had sent Adam proof that the investors were running the same game in 3 different states. Adam ignored it. Actually, worse, he doubled down. He bragged to mutual friends that he was going to turn this into a family thing, get mom and dad on board so they could all cash in. That explained the co-signed line of credit. But then Mark dropped the real bomb. Adam had been telling people I was already part of the deal, that I had promised to cover him if anything went wrong. It was his way of making the scam sound safer, telling people his older brother was a sure backup. So when I said no, it was not just my parents he had blindsided. It was everyone who had bought into his fantasy thinking I was the safety net. Mark said there were at least 3 people, 2 of them local, who were now furious with Adam and looking for someone to hold accountable. That someone, Mark said, might end up being you. He set you up, man, whether you knew it or not. I thanked him, hung up, and sat there for a long time, letting it all sink in. It was not just about refusing to save Adam anymore. It was about cutting off a narrative he had already been selling to anyone who would listen, that I was still the dependable brother who would swoop in when the chips were down. And suddenly, I realized my silence was not enough. I was going to have to make it absolutely, permanently clear that I was out. The question was how far I was willing to go to make sure they believed it. I spent the rest of that day weighing my options. One part of me wanted to disappear entirely, change my number, block them all, pretend none of it existed. The other part wanted to make a statement they could not twist, deny, or rewrite. In the end, I chose the second. I called my bank first. I made sure no joint accounts existed, no old emergency contacts listed mom or dad, no dormant credit cards where Adam could somehow weasel in. Then I froze my credit, just in case he had already been fishing for ways to use my name again. Next, I sat down and wrote a short, deliberate email. It went to my parents, Adam, and, this was key, every relative and mutual connection who had been pinging me since mom's Facebook post. It was not emotional, not defensive, just the facts. I wrote that I had no involvement in Adam's investment, that I had made no promises to cover his debts, and that I would not be offering financial help of any kind. I stated, in plain words, that any claims to the contrary were false. And then I added one final paragraph. For my own peace of mind, and because this pattern has repeated itself too many times to count, I will no longer be in contact with anyone who continues to involve me in Adam's affairs. This is not negotiable. I wish you all well, but I am done. I read it twice, hit send, and felt something loosen in my chest that I had been carrying for decades. It did not take long for the responses to start. Mom's came first, pages of how I was breaking her heart, how family should forgive, how I would regret turning my back. Dad's was shorter. You're dead to me until you fix this. Adam's was the one that almost made me laugh. 2 sentences. You've ruined me. Hope you're happy. I did not reply to any of them. But the silence did not last. 3 days later, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, the last person I expected to see was standing there. Someone who could have been my way back into the family if I had wanted it. Only this time, I did not. Standing on my porch was Aunt Linda. She had always been the one person in the family who treated me like I mattered. Birthdays remembered, cards in the mail, a phone call now, and then just to ask how I was doing, not to ask for anything. She looked older than I remembered, more tired. Her winter coat hung loose on her shoulders, and her eyes carried the kind of weight that comes from being stuck in the middle of a war you did not start. I am not here to fight, she said. I am here to ask you one last time. She told me mom and dad were a mess, that Adam was barely leaving his apartment, that the bank was moving faster than they expected, and there were whispers about other people getting involved. The kind of people you did not want knocking on your door. I listened. I kept my face neutral. Then she pulled out an envelope. I could see the faint outline of a check inside. They managed to scrape together this much, she said. If you could just match it, maybe it would be enough to buy him some time. It was strange, hearing the words from her instead of from them. If anyone could have convinced me, it would have been her. For a moment, the old temptation stirred. I could picture it, handing over the money, watching the crisis quiet down, maybe even being thanked for once. But then another picture formed, the same cycle starting all over again, only worse. And me, stuck in it until the day I could not climb out. I shook my head. I am sorry, Linda. I really am. But I am not going back. Her shoulders sank, and she studied me for a long moment, like she was memorizing something. Then this is it, she said quietly. They will not forgive you for this. I told her I knew. She left the envelope on the porch rail, even though I never touched it. When she walked away, she did not look back. I stood there until her car disappeared down the street, the cold air biting at my face. Inside, my phone buzzed, another message from Adam. I deleted it without reading. Because now, I knew exactly how this was going to end. A week passed before I heard anything else. No calls from Mom. No texts from Dad. Not even one of Adam's half-angry, half-pitiful messages. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, I opened my email and found a single message in my inbox. No subject line. No greeting. Just 3 short sentences from Mom. It is over. We will handle things without you. Do not come around again. That was it. I stared at the words for a long time. Not because they hurt, but because I realized they were exactly what I had been waiting for without even knowing it. Confirmation that the bridge was gone, burned clean to the water. I closed the laptop, made a cup of coffee, and went out to the balcony. The winter air was sharp, the kind that wakes you up all the way. For the first time in years, I felt like I was standing somewhere entirely my own. Later that day, a mutual friend sent me a screenshot of another one of Mom's Facebook posts. It was about family betrayal and learning who truly stands by you. People were commenting with sympathy again, offering prayers and stay strong messages. But this time, I did not feel the urge to defend myself. Let them have their version of the story. Because the truth, the one that mattered, was that I was finally out of theirs. That night, I put my phone on silent and turned off every notification. I cooked dinner, watched a movie, and fell asleep without checking if anyone had tried to reach me. Somewhere across town, Adam was probably scrambling to fix his mess without the safety net he had always counted on. Mom and Dad were probably telling anyone who would listen how cold I had become. But they all knew now. The one person who might have cared enough to save them never would again. And that was permanent.